To call this meeting to order, and our second order of business is Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Travis. We have two announcements this evening. The first one is for a Chapter 66, titled Housing and Property Maintenance, to amend Section 66-2, titled Amendments, Additions and Deletions. One, Purpose, Legislative Findings, and Section 1008.E3 to increase the points for violation. Second announcements is we held an executive session this evening to talk about personnel matter. Next, we have comments, suggestions, petitions by residents. Please be advised there's a 5-minute time limit. Do we have any public comment? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to report. Manager.
Good evening. Sean Metrick, Borough Manager, for those of you who don't know me. This is cool. We have a cheat sheet of how to make public. This is the Borough Manager budget presentation that's supposed to take place. We're going to talk almost entirely tonight about the general fund budget, because that's the headline budget. That's the one that Bill Ratu cares about the most, because that affects everyone's taxes in town. Just know kinds of funds and budgets, but we're going to spend most of our time tonight talking about general fund, and we're going to spend most of our time talking about the operating budget. All I've given you so far is the presentation that I've uploaded. October's committee meetings to have more substantive conversations about what's going up and down quantitatively, and you can ask the department heads more detailed questions about So going on to the next slide, thank you very much. What does local government do? I wanted to start here because I wanted to talk a little bit about Westchester Borough, I also learned what the Chester County has a flag. Do y'all know that? And Chester County has a flag with a square rig tall ship on it. I don't know the last time I looked, but where's the port in Chester? Layers of government that are overlapping at all times for everybody in this room. Everybody is I was going to say subject of the crown. Everyone's a citizen of everyone lives in the United States. Big law-wise. States fall under that, counties fall under that, and then local governments. And I threw in school districts here because they're one of the big local taxing authorities. So if we move on to the I thought about this again in 3 types of things that we do that are roughly, when you look at what we do in these categories, much money on those public safety services as we do on our streets, on our storm sewers, green stormwater infrastructure, buildings, as we do on our services. Services include government in general, because where else can people meet and talk about things that affect their day-to-day lives? And that's something I really like about local government. We manage codes enforcement, licenses and building permits. We make sure the contractors doing in the work in the borough are building to proper standards so that current and future residents can be safe in their home. We manage a $5 million parking business operation in town that supports local businesses. Our infrastructure components include streets, trees, storm sewers, environmental factors. What I like about local government is the things that we do impact people directly, and we must do things at a very high quality. We see issues that need to be addressed by our codes enforcement team. Those come up in this. We hear public safety issues. Those come up in this forum. So we spend a lot of time talking about services. Addresses those concerns, and that you, 7 plus the mayor, are the people that tell me what distill those concerns into direction for me to implement through the budget. The budget is and that's another thing I really like about local government is we get to deploy and employ resources in the town to make things happen. So I don't know about you all, but I'm very proud to work at this level of government because going on to the next slide, this harkens back to that first one. This is a typical breakdown. I know there's no such thing as a typical. Household, there can be a higher income household. So everybody's pie looks a little bit different on this chart. But I think it's common that most of your tax dollars are going to the federal government. To county, state, and local services. So I just want to make that point that while we do a lot for people at the local level, we are not the biggest gorilla in the room as far as taxes. A lot of that's going to the federal government. Defense, military, surveillance, NSA, FBI, all those things that the federal government does are really quite abstract, to be honest with you. But apparently, I think we do an awful lot, as I've testified here earlier. So going on to the next slide, sort of start talking about how we organize this spending around our three divided up into. I've already made this point that these are roughly divided into thirds. So if we go into the next slide, this is how we do it. This is how the government fund accounting is the funding that we have discretion over, and that's the funding where tax revenue lands, both EIT and property taxes, as well as fees and transfers and parking. Our restricted funds can only be used for certain types of expenditures. They supplement what we do. A lot of these are geared towards infrastructure. And a lot of these are, I looked up the word, um, and the beneficiaries are those that are collecting and will one day collect benefits from these obligations. And the word fiduciary means that you must act in those beneficiaries' best interest. Last 6 to 7 years. There's lots of ways in which this responsibility doesn't get adhered to correctly in local government. I read a book one time about beautiful conservative Republican county in the LA area, and went bankrupt in 1994 because people were And there's a really good book about that I read, and it talks about how we can get off track through being tempted to do things that are maybe not the wisest business decisions. So I'm here to make sure we are committed to running a fiscally responsible organization. So but I have an interest in studying like catastrophes, so that's why. Where does the money come from? I took numbers from last year's budget because we haven't finished this year's budget on the revenue side, but I just wanted you to know that 60% of our income is coming from tax sources. And we do from property tax, but that accounts for about close to 13 million of that, 13.6 million in that number there. Local services tax accounts for the remainder of that, and then there's lieu of paying taxes because they're being nice to us. So we thank them for doing that. The local service tax, Mr. Flynn, you ask this question every year, is capped. And we're the other thing I want to pause just a little bit, and I don't have the figures written down on the slide, but I want you to know that the tax base for the borough is about $775 million, give or take. And about a third of I paused for a second on the number and I looked up some of our other neighboring townships for their assessed values. And West Goshen Township's total assessed value is a little $1 billion. Again, we're at 775 million. East Bradford Township, which has half the population, lovely township, half the population has a higher assessed value than Westchester, higher taxable assessed value, $857 million in taxable assessed value. So we have to raise revenue from a relatively small how do we work within that structure and don't do dumb things like they did in Orange County 31 years ago, right? because they were short on revenue and they decided the only way they could make revenue was trade and derivatives. We have to work levy taxes on. So going on, we're getting into discussions, broad discussions, high altitude discussions about where the operating budget's going to land and where I think things are going. Right now, the highway aid, stream protection and fire funds, parking funds are all in balance. That's been true every year I've been doing the budget. Those are the easy ones, right? The revenue comes in, the capital projects go out. Percent of the general fund operations are funded through basically profit from the parking fund. That's why it's so important that we be engaged with downtown businesses and economic development. That's why the bids work is live in, to send their kids to college and all these great things that Westchester is known for. We have skin in that game. The government doesn't work if we don't have people coming here and paying that $1.50 an hour. However, right now we're staring at a big gap in the budget. And then this is not make you all scared moment. It's just we are really in the embryonic stages of putting this budget together. So right now there's to me in the last 4 to 6 weeks. I'm not presenting to you numbers tonight because I think that gap is just too big. We need to have a more reasonable conversation around the budget than saying expenses are. Going on in the sewer fund as we do in general fund, which are generally around capital expenditures. And that's one thing I want to highlight to you tonight is that we need to focus as a team and come up with a better solution. So going on to the next slide. The good news, I want to share some good news. We have some potential income growth influencing the budget going into next. Defined benefit pension plans. That's not as big as it has been in the past. And I'm going to show you a graph on that. We're anticipating 3% growth in earned income tax, which will generate about $195,000. We continue to do better with parking volume and parking revenue. And then a very big number there for increase in rental license revenue. This is just proposed right now because I'm not to next year, and I want better supporting documentation from that. And we're going to help Aaron's been around the block a few times here, broken a sweat, but make sure we got a reasonable number there for generating more fees. But we are long overdue. Let me tell you, long overdue for raising the fee we charge for rental licenses. I'm looking at travel to the site, inspect the property, which even in best case scenarios takes about 15 minutes. Now, I haven't even talked about the properties that we go and inspect and find something wrong. Now we're going to follow up with a notice of violation that we notified them of. And if they don't correct it, we have to file something in court, more work. So the idea that it averages out to $44 per unit. Now the bad news on the bottom side. I really boiled these down to a couple of things to focus on. We could talk about every line item in the budget and parse it all out. We'd be here to 4 a.m. But capital expenses is going up net 2.3 mil. So there you have the basics of what's tipping the seesaw one way to the other that we have to get right. Just for comparison's sake, it's supplemented by grants to do their capital projects that we plan to do this year. So so far we've proposed a more than 4-fold increase in that number. And I just think that's just too much. Things are going to have to be either deferred down to more rational figure for you next month. So far, so good, Barb? Yeah, Barb didn't. This is I'm seeing about an 8-year winning streak of reductions in transfers to our 2 defined benefit pension plans. This is something a lot of but how do you fund them, right? A lot of municipalities don't have this decreasing chart. In fact, Westchester didn't. And I think this is a convenient graph because I'm showing you the to devote to paying this down and look at the results. It's generated relief to the general fund, made every manager's budget easier to do since then. So that was good governance. That was a good decision. Get a payment from the state to help us with pension payments, and it went up by $138,000 this year, which is good because they adjusted the formula or on to the next slide. So again, talking a little bit about our 2 main drivers of expenses going up this year. We have a year-over-year change in public safety operating expenses. EMS, we talked about that with Jazz last week. That's plus 130,000. And then a normal year-over-year increase of 3% to fire, which is already in our contract, which I think was a good move to and then the year-over-year change in net capital expense you're seeing right there. It's being driven by a lot of numbers coming out of Public Works, an increase in parks, and we're going to get into more of those details as time moves on. So there's lots of ways to fund our capital projects. It doesn't all come from that transfer from the general fund. So to the extent that we're able to go out and source grants, borrow money, or dip into cash reserves can Now, making a little bit of progress. The key to having a successful capital program starts with knowing what you're going to do. So knowing what you have to do. That is going to need to be replaced. The wrong time to fix a leaking roof. The wrong time to fix a roof is when it's leaking. You're supposed to fix it in that 19th or 20th year of its useful life, so you don't have to deal with the problem. More than $5,000 and has a useful life greater than a year is a capital asset, and everything has a lifespan on that capital asset depreciation schedule. And when it gets down to zero book value, that's an indication to you, you should. What you need to do is budget a trend line, not the year-over-year spend line. Because year over year, this is just I did this as hypothetical capital spending. And then very wildly from year over year, it can be 300,000 one year, 800 the next, over $1 million the next, drop down to 200 the next. It's bouncing all around. And if I come to the Borough Council every year and I'm like, well, we need more money this year to pay for the in year 4 and asking for a tax reduction, am I? Like that would be a first, wouldn't it? So the smart thing to do with capital spend is to budget that dotted line, which increases slowly. And then you have to have enough in reserve to make sure you can pay for those years when you have a high number, like year 3. You got to make sure you got enough in reserves that you can meet those bills, because you're not going to get that money back, so to speak, until you program and come back and ask for way more things that weren't in last year's capital program. We need more foresight and more understanding and a really good 3-year vision of what we're going to be spending our money on. 5 is really hard to do. Years 1 through 3 should be pretty solid, I think, and we should be basing it on quotes, and we should be basing it on known expiry of known capital assets, known expiration dates of capital assets, not guesswork. For October, and hopefully it's going to bring down that capital spend number for everybody. Lastly, just wanted to say a couple kind of repeat messages I had. Without presenting to you a complete sewer fund budget yet, I think we need to be leaning into slow, minimal increases in the sewer. Those funds to be able to pay for those big projects. There is a permit, for those of you who have not heard, there's a new permit to be issued for the Goose Creek wastewater treatment plant that contemplates anywhere from don't ask me chemically how that's done. That's what the wastewater engineer teaches me and Sean Mitchell, but it costs a lot of money to make those improvements, and DEP is going to ask us to do that. New permit is iterative. We make small investments. We test the outcome of those investments before DEP will set the limit that we have to attain in our new permit, and that's loves bacon. We continue to have a really robust grant matchmaking program, thanks to the team, and thanks specifically to Will Williams for writing good applications. And we have also found a very good application of artificial applications that are really high quality. Our success rate is about 2/3. I mean, if we were a baseball player, we'd be best ever. We have 7 pending applications with an ask of $4 million. We've been able to secure $5.3 million in funding for the borough across sewer and general fund and stream protection fund expenses. So I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. And so lastly, what are we going to do as a team between now and October? Our goal is always to work to eliminate or reduce or eliminate a property tax increase. Conversations about how slowly the tax base grows, how few avenues there are for us to raise new revenue. Fees we're looking at this year, which is going to help. Is not that big for the borough. And I think that the message I want to tell you and tell the community is, I think it's smart to consider a very which is a pattern we've settled into in the last few years with borough councils since 2020. And I think it's worked out pretty well. And that shows in our financial statements. Whether we get there this year or not still remains to be seen. Budgeting the correct sustainable funding number year over year. I don't know what that number is yet, but if I do nothing else in my time here with the borough, I want to make sure that capital programming is properly funded going. Of the town. This building itself is slowly aging and falling down very slowly. You can't see it, right? But at some point, repairs have to be made. Building systems have to be refurbished. You don't want to make some other council down the road left holding the bag with a big bill. Muttering your names under their breath, saying, why didn't those people save more money back then and plan for this future? Way in the piggy bank, so to speak, to make those commitments a reality. And that concludes tonight's budget presentation, and you'll be getting lots of numbers by the end of the week. I think and happy to answer any questions I can or defer them to others who can.
Thank you very much. Excellent primer for what we're going to be looking at over the next comments or questions.
I actually do have a comment. Sean, thank you for that presentation. I thought it was very helpful. I think the one thing it comes down to is every budget, it's your needs versus your and hopefully as a staff is figure out what is needed now. You know, I understand that there are budget proposals regarding equipment, regarding programs. Defer them. And the one thing we also have to look at is grants. We don't have a state budget right now. Okay. The federal budget cut environmental, stormwater, and whatnot. So we're going to have to do a lot more with a lot less. And so we just need to be cognizant of that as council and as borough staff. And I think we need to be strategic. And so that's just a point that I wanted to make.
Thank you. Any other comments? We will move on to old business. Motion to approve the August 19, 20, 28, 2025 Borough Council meeting minute. We have consensus on that? All right, move that to work to the consent agenda, please, and we'll move on to new business. Communication and Technology Committee.
Yeah, just a few items here tonight regarding public hearings. First is a motion to schedule a public hearing on October 15th, 2025 at 6:30 regarding Comcast's past performance under its current franchise agreement. So this is just to schedule a hearing to look at to discuss the franchise agreement. That was a 2-0 recommendation. Mr. McGinnis was absent that night, so it was just Sheila Vaccaro and myself. Next one is, so we'd like to add that to.
Yeah,
Any comments on this?
well, just the same, I know probably it's a hearing, but still I'll do the thing to recuse myself tomorrow. so
Right.
However you want to put that into the voting, so I can do that. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any public comments on this first item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 2. Motion to schedule a public hearing on October 15th as well at, this would be proceeding, the first public hearing or part of this, the second, part 2 of that hearing at 6:30 PM to amend certain regulations in subsection 3-38.t. This is the Community Campus Committee, Westchester's Community Campus Committee. This was to essentially expand some roles and responsibilities of the membership. And that was also a recommendation of 2.0. 2.20.
Comment? Public comment or questions? I'll take number 3 because we've moved that for the Westchester bid agreement, was not discussed at the ACT agenda, but it's been moved to number 8, other business this evening. So we'll move on to,
We have a motion to approve the special events parking policy. The issue is to approve the policy to administer fees for special events in garages and lots that occur in town center. The recommendation was 3-0.
any comments or questions, council? Public comments or questions?
Lot enforcement.
The decision for Sunday timing is starting at 12 until the end of the event.
Any other comments?
What was the end result of the amount? Was it 20?
Yeah, $20.
Okay, we'll move on to Public Works Committee.
Good evening. The Public Works Committee motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement with West Goshen Township for maintenance of roads. We reviewed the agreement for the road maintenance because the roads, they don't actually intertwine, but they butt up against one another between West Goshen and the borough. And that was a 3-0 approval to sign the agreement.
Questions or comments? Public comments or questions? Okay,
All right. Number 2, motion to approve the sale of 4 decommissioned police vehicles will be put on municipal bid. Approval for sale of the vehicles was a 3-0.
comments or questions? Public comment or question? Okay.
Apologize, I was having an issue with the microphone here. Motion to approve the following purchase requests, items 1 through 8. Item 1C, $15,816.76. Muni billing SPF software for 2026. Plate Logic, $11,200. Batavio, $18,584.04. Univar soda ash removal for September 2020. Cents. USACO 57, that's phosphorus removal, $15,280. And finally, William S. Malani and Sons Chestnut Garage EV charging, 11. Zero decision.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Public comments or questions?
I just had two quick questions. Plate Logic, what is that?
License plate readers for the garages.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then they'll be putting in new chargers, more chargers?
It's just one more.
One more?
Right. The question is about the charging, right? So that's one more charging station at the Chestnut Garage.
Okay, thank
Item 2, move to approve the 2026 minimum municipal benefit contributions. That was a 3-0 decision.
Any comments or questions from council? Public comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. First item is a motion to approve the resolution for a mutual aid agreement with the Westchester Area Regional Emergency Response Team. This is just formalizing that collaboration, and it was recommended 3-0.
Mr. McCoy, I do have a question with the agreement. I don't sit on that committee, so Mr. Metric, in the event of our employees go into the emergency response team, does our insurance policy go with the individuals, or does the CERT team have their own carrier if they get injured doing that kind of stuff?
Certainly, if it's an injury to our employee, it's covered by workers' comp, whether they're serving on an emergency response team. It's normal course of duty. So that's one part of the answer. But I think there's another part of the answer is what's the liability incurred by activities of the Westchester Regional Emergency Response Team when it's responding? And you can imagine with those kinds of situations, that issue's probably pretty real. Yeah. So again, the boroughs, in this case, the borough's liability would extend to its employees involved in that. So borough would share a part of that liability for things that took place as part of that regional response team. But the regional response team, I believe, and I could get you an answer from Josh on this, I think they also will have their own liability insurance as well.
It's like there's two different operations. If an employee, which is our police department, has an issue with day-to-day operations, 1.8 square miles, and they get injured, that's typical workman's compensation. But as they sign up for the emergency response team, going someplace else, does our liability, our health insurance go with them? Because that's extracurricular activity.
It's part of duty, and in workers' comp, the officer would be covered by the borough. If it's a borough police officer going off on emergency response, it's covered by borough's workers' comp insurance. But the liability question, I believe there is something in there that that everybody, oh, okay, it's not a separate. So all the jurisdictional members have to have a minimum amount of liability coverage. So everybody who participates in the emergency response team, every municipal entity has to have a minimum amount of liability coverage. And in the event of a claim of something the emergency response team, someone alleges that they did, I'm sure everyone in that case would be named in the suit.
The insurance following the individuals, they say, you know, if they're doing their day-to-day operation and they have to rush to a different township and something happens to them over there, because they're a special unit. Does a special unit step up and have their own guidelines and insurance and stuff like that? I was just curious how that worked, that's all.
Each member has its own insurance, including general liability, auto liability, police professional liability, and public officials coverage. Policy, boroughs.
Any other comments?
Okay, moving on to number 2, motion to approve the request for good fellowship to allow temporary sign installation on borough properties. Review request for a good fellowship to allow signs on borough properties for fundraising purposes. If anyone was paying attention to Sean's presentation on the budget or Chaz Brogan's presentation last week, that was so shocking. I can't remember. It was upwards of, I think, 70%. So yes, we need all the fundraising we can find to keep our ambulance and EMT services.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about that is the more public education about
Yep.
borough responsibility and responsibility relative to emergency medical services. Before I came on council, I had no idea that that was part of what we paid taxes for. So I'm all for many places they put.
So,
We should have them in here.
yeah,
For sure.
on the website. I would,
Table here.
I would be remiss if I did not at least mention, I got an email from one of my constituents who was a little concerned about excess signage around the borough in general. And so I too very much believe in these signs and get them as much money as possible. But just some thoughts that she had with regards to, you know, if we put the signs up, let's do a better job of taking signs down when it's time to take signs down. I took that feedback myself because I went around town a couple weeks ago and put up a bunch of signs for the biking survey that I know I promise I will be going around taking them down at some point. But also just, I wanted to relay that feedback. She took the time to write me a message on this particular topic. And so I'm just sharing out her voice so that it's heard.
Any public comments?
Aaron Fluke, Director of Building and Housing. Just a point of interest on this one. Temporary signs are a non-permit. For a maximum of 60 days out of a calendar year. So just so you understand what the rules that we have in our ordinance regarding temporary signs, that would still go towards this type of sign or any other type of sign for fundraising. Organization.
Total of 60 days for any individual.
For any individual sign
Any
can be there for
individual sign.
60 days out of a year. So if they put it, let's say they put it at or they put it into one of our parks. If they move it to another park, that sign starts over again at another 60 days. Because that would be a different sign, a different location.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing that very much.
Or for temporary signs.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, I think we can move on to smart growth.
That's me. Okay, number one, motion to direct solicitor to schedule a public hearing on November 19th to amend chapter 112, 602 zoning, referencing curbs and streets. And so this was based on a call out from our Public Works Department that points in time when curbs are required by zoning in alleys, they could potentially pose a hazard to our equipment. And so the zoning ordinance was changed to give the Public Works Department some say in certain situations, like in the alleys, if the curbs are required, just to waive that curb necessity during the process. So that is what that is doing. Any questions? Anyone? Okay, move that to consent. All right, number two, motion to direct solicitor to prepare a zoning amendment to the build to line. And this was from the Planning Commission. They've been working on this for about a year, or maybe a little more. They are recommending the build to line B0. I want to thank Steve Marvin, who is also running for Borough Council. He sent me a wealth of information regarding the benefits of the build to line being 0. So that was great. A really good read that he had of information he sent over, but we recommend this 3-0. Vernie said yes, but yes.
Any comments or questions? Public comments or questions?
All right, consent. All right, number three, motion directing the solicitor to attend hearing board for, there's a couple of them. First one is for the hearing to oppose 436 North Church Street, decrease allowable side yard and rear setback. This is Church and Marshall. They're looking to subdivide like they have the land and they have an apartment building. So there's a couple of things going on here. So the recommendation is to send the solicitor to make sure that all is within the zoning.
Comments or questions? Public comments?
Just for your drop it to continue it until next month in October. So the date would change from the September 22nd meeting to the meeting in October, which I don't remember the exact date on right now.
So do we keep this on consent or do we bring it up again next month? Just keep going with? Okay, okay. All right, we still good for consent to move this to?
Yes.
All right. Next one, motion for no solicitor to attend the zoning hearing meeting for 210 to 214 West Washington, exceed allowable building coverage. So if you remember, this is the property, they want to build 8 homes on the Yarnall's. Yarnall's impervious coverage, I forget what it was, but it was a lot. The builders of this property, it's less, not quite in it's slightly off from our zoning requirements. So the idea is because they're doing such a improvement already, we really don't need to send a solicitor to fight this. Just let it go and we can get 8 units versus 6. Okay, no questions?
I think this went from like, what was it, 88% or something impervious down to 48 total, not building. But the building coverage was over.
43 or 45.
Thank you. Great.
All right, consent for that one. And number 4, motion to approve HARB applications for 18th South Church Street. They're replacing their porch roof, and 20 North Matlack Street. They're replacing the mural. And HARB approved maybe a couple of things that have to be done, but nothing major. And we were good with what their approval was. Any
Comments? Public
Any-
comment?
All right,
Move that to consent.
consent. Right. This is the Safe Harbor mural. They're upgrading and they're making yeah. Okay, and then motion to appoint Aaron Fluke as the zoning officer. So we did not realize Aaron also has all sorts of certifications to be our zoning officer, and he brings a wealth of knowledge. It just, as we experienced tonight with just learning about how long we're allowed to have a sign up, like things we did not know. So we all were pretty excited about this move. It'll save the borough money because we won't have to use consultants. We'll have someone in-house with in-house knowledge. So we were all pretty excited to add that title to Aaron's title line. Any questions?
We only have one zoning officer in the borough?
Or assume we have a backup if necessary?
We do have a third party. So currently we have 2 third-party companies.
So to recap for anybody that's listening, we currently have 2 third parties. We'll go down to 1 and Aaron will split his duties with that third party. So we'll still have a backup of a third party.
Any further comments or questions? Public comments? All right, move that to consent.
All right, last but not least, motion to grant the request from the Public Arts Commission to release the call to art for the murals on the 200 block of East Gay Street. So for the, but not, is it by, what centennial are we doing? The 250-year anniversary or for, yes, quiz, yes. They would like to put a mural on the American Legion, next to Rita's. And so this is to go out and call artists to propose a mural for that building. So we just have to officially request it.
Sounds cool.
Everyone good?
Public comments? Okay, we'll move on to other business. Motion to schedule a public hearing on October 15th, 2025 at 6:30 PM to enact an ordinance for 5-year final plan. Comment?
I'd like to add that to consent.
I'm sorry.
Add it to consent.
Okay. Sounds like we have consent.
Is that the plan that a lot of businesses object to when they're expanding the footprint?
Yes.
This would be, and Mr. Metrick, you can answer that. I think we had 6 property objections of the 40-some added.
That's correct.
Total population of bid properties, which that does not satisfy, correct?
Yeah, it's not. It has, I don't know the right word. It hasn't been objected to by rule, but the council will still need to have the ordinance to approve authorization of the bid. Need to have the hearing to approve the authorization of the bid.
So even if 100% of them had said yes, we still have to reauthorize.
And of note, it sounds like there weren't even 40% objections from the new businesses. We didn't even hit that threshold.
Correct. Okay, sounds like we have consent for that. All right, then we are adjourned at 7:35. Thank you.